Well, first of all, this isn't really about anything like recent, but just wanted to ask. I know you're like one of the biggest Replacements fans of all time, as am I, and you were there for their first reunion show. And one of the things I was really curious about was a few shows after that they included Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day into their live set, and I actually saw one of those shows too. Did you have any thoughts about that in particular?
Oh, not especially. I'm not the hugest Green Day fan in the world. Nothing against Green Day. But Green Day is sort of an important band. That was the way that a lot of people first got introduced to punk rock. And in my own life, I can remember when the Dookie album came out back in '94, and my older sister had a copy of it, and that kind of sent her off into this little like punk phase where she was dyeing her hair green and stuff and fighting with dad and all that good teenage rebellion kind of thing. So, that was kind of my first introduction to the culture too. So even if I don't always pull out too many Green Day records nowadays, you got to be grateful and respectful to them because, they've done a lot to make punk rock accessible to people that maybe wouldn't have otherwise ever known about it. So it's a real good thing to me.
Did you have any like particular thoughts about like how having Billy Joe on that tour? Did you have any opinion about that in particular?
He probably wouldn't have been on my like dream team list of people to see jamming with the Replacements, but I don't know, nothing but love for Billy Joe, and I'm sure that it made a lot of people happy, so I ain't mad about it.
So what would be your dream team then?
Oh, I don't know. I never really thought about it. Me, I guess.
I figured there probably would have been some jealousy there.
Should have had me up there. Well, I recognize that Titus Andronicus doesn't hold the same sort of cultural currency that Green Day does, and that's okay. Green Day maybe made a lot of things possible for me in other ways, so if they stand in the way of me jamming on stage with the Replacements, then that's fine. Very blessed man, I don't need to sit around and stew over the things that I haven't been able to do when I've been able to do so many things.
There are a lot of opportunities out there in life, but so you said that like your sister like really got you into like punk and stuff, and I'm pretty sure that like you started Titus when you were around 20 years old. So were you any other musical projects before you started Titus, or like were you in part of the scene in any way otherwise?
Oh yeah, well I mean I was in a dozen bands back in high school, but that was just for fun. But that was really how Titus Andronicus started out too. I was the first couple lineups of the band were mostly people from my small town in New Jersey who I had gone to school with, and it was just kind of a way to keep the whole little like after school rock and roll club open for business, But I guess that's kind of what I've been doing all along, just trying to hold on to that sort of teenage exuberant feeling, that comes from playing loud music and screaming and hopping up and down.
Good, cool. Well, also, you put out a Stadium Rock a couple weeks ago, Titus's first ever live album. So I know that a year ago I read that you had like the 5 shows set up in a row. Were you planning on originally releasing that like a year since that show, or like what was your planning process for releasing Stadium Rock?
Well, it was actually the live album came out digitally anyway, a year and a day after the release of our last studio album, The Most Lamentable Tragedy. And that was the record label's idea, which was a fine idea. I had originally thought that we could maybe come out with it a little bit sooner, but, we had a lot of other stuff going on, being on the road and doing all these other kind of more time-sensitive things. So it got pushed back a little bit, but that's all right with me. A year anniversary, why not, right? if that's what the record label wants to do, it's fine by me. You know, the people over at Merge Records are very smart, very conscientious, very kind, wonderful people.
Indeed, they are. Well, also I was curious too about some like the tracks you chose to include for the live album. Did you you probably planned those out accordingly? But I was expecting to see like No Future Part 4 and then like a whole bunch of stuff from the second act played back to back. And you also included 69 Stones, which was a track that you chose not to include on the Most Lamentable Tragedy. Were there any reasons like why you picked the tracks you did and excluded some as well?
Well, it was kind of well, there was two ideas at work. You know, one of them, you know, particularly on the first side of the live record, was a way to sort of demonstrate that even though the Most Lamentable Tragedy studio album is kind of a very long, sort of impenetrable, inscrutable exercise, you know, testing the listener's patience as much as we can, wanted to show that even though it's this big package, you know, the component pieces of it, the individual songs that make up rock opera, to my mind, are fairly concise, direct rock jams, you know? And I thought that maybe if we presented them in a different context without the whole wider narrative, then maybe people could recognize that when you get into it, like the rock opera is not such a crazy impenetrable thing. On one level, it's just, you know, a collection of good time rock party anthems, you know, in a way. And then on the B-side, presents the fifth act of the rock opera in its entirety, but with different arrangements, because that fifth act, which is the last side of the Most Lamentable Tragedy triple LP, a lot of those songs are like more acoustic based, not acoustic guitars, of course, but not like the raging electric guitar, drum set kind of rock band arrangements. And that was a conscientious choice to reflect the themes of that particular part of the rock opera narrative. You know, a time when the main character is very isolated and disempowered. So on the record, it made a lot of sense for the arrangements to be a lot sparser. But in the live concert format, that could potentially be, you know, ever so slightly boring. And I thought that the songs there had the potential to be reimagined as rockers. So that's what we decided to do. And we put that unreleased song in there because that was part of my original schematic for the fifth act. But, you know, it was getting to be a little long and the song wasn't 100% done. So that got put aside, but I figured that we could find a way to use it somewhere down the line. And now we have.
That's really interesting that you mentioned like that, like the acoustic instrumentation of the second track of the fifth act and trying to like electrify it for the live album. But originally I was assuming that your choice to play No Future Part 5 like completely full band electric was based on the Replacement's choice to play androgynous electrically as well. But I guess that's not the case.
Well, you know, that's just another example of a long continuum in rock history of acoustic tracks being reimagined electrically in a live setting. You know, Weezer did that with Butterfly, and the Smashing Pumpkins did an electric version of Disarm. A lot of bands have done it. It's a great thing to do, you know. It gives a refreshing new perspective on old favorites.
True. And also, speaking of this, you said in your Genius Online, like you actually went to Genius.com, took the lyrics for The Most Lamentable Tragedy, and added like annotations to all of it. And you said that for No Future Part 5, that was going to be the end of the No Future saga. And it does have like quite a sense of catharsis to it. But I hate to see it end so suddenly, you know, like that. Is it, so you're 100% certain no Future Part 6?
I mean, 6 is a lot. 5 is a lot to begin with, you know. I can only bludgeon these same themes and motifs for so long, you know. been like doing this no future thing for, 8 or 9 years now, I suppose. But I don't know. Never say never. Maybe I won't come up with any new ideas, and I'll have to go back to the old standards someday. But it's not in my plans right now.
Cool. Well, also, you said that Titus, like a year ago, I looked at all of your interviews that like you put out right when the Most Lamentable Tragedy came out, and it said that you were considering that you didn't know if there was going to be another Titus record. You were thinking, well, this might be the last one. Just depends on how well it does. It's been a year since then, and how are you feeling? Have you started writing material for the new record or anything like that yet?
Seems to me that maybe there might be sufficient support amongst our audience for there to be another record, but I can't really speak at any length about what that'll be, what kind of form that'll take. But I'm always jotting stuff down, I'm always trying to come up with new rhymes and stuff, and whether that turns into a new album, I'm not presently certain. But, like you said, as I said, it really is up to the fans, to our audience to decide if we are going to continue on and continue to produce records and stuff. Because, it's by their support that we're able to do what it is we do. The artist is kind of an elected official that way, right? And the audience is the constituency, and they vote with their dollar when they make the choice to buy a record or a concert ticket or a T-shirt or whatever, and keep our revenue streams flowing. So we'll see, But in that way, like every previous record could have been the last one. At any time, the people can decide that they've had enough and withdraw their support, but they haven't done that in any conclusive way just yet. But, it's just one of the ways that I try to stay humble and remember that, I'm very blessed to have this audience and this opportunity to do what it is I want to do, and just recognize that it could go away at any time,
This is kind of an older question. And one thing that I was really curious about was you did reference a lot of like your older albums in the Most Lamentable Tragedy, like a track like More Perfect Union, and he said, she said, the first line is a reference to my eating disorder. Mystery Man is a reference to the Electric Man. Was there a reason that you chose to like reincorporate all your old albums into this one?
Yeah, well, we've done similar things in the past. It's just trying to like weave a certain kind of web, like to turn the whole body of work, the whole band's catalog, into like a more immersive experience for the listener, to kind of try and build like a tiny little universe, that will reward a deeper investment, and closer attention. A lot of certain bands that I've really loved have done this. The Hold Steady comes to mind. And I feel that it just makes being a fan that much more satisfying and rich experience. And really, my hope is that when Titus Andronicus goes out and wins over our fans, that those fans get interested in the whole thing, the whole career, not just one particular song or one particular album. We want them to be fans of the band. And I think, if you can make that as rich and immersive an experience as possible, then those people are more likely to come back again and again, rather than looking at Titus Andronicus as some flavor of the month to be enjoyed for a brief window and then quickly forgotten about. That support is not really that valuable in the long term.
So you're going for the full investment.
That's right. That's what I would prefer. We want to be somebody's favorite band, not just one of the 100 bands that they're listening to this week or this month.
I'd always had friends who would come through and like my DIY punk scene in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina, and they played Shea Stadium. But I had no idea that you guys or the So-So Glows were like the ones who were really like associated with that. And between like your time like doing Titus stuff and Shea Stadium, how do you really divide that up? And what role specifically do you have in the operation of Shea Stadium?
Oh, well, I'm retired from active duty at Shea Stadium now, and for about the last year, you know, the DIY scene is really for younger people, you know. Not to put it down at all, you know, but, yeah, I haven't really been working there. But, I got a lot of love for it still. I think it's a real important thing, and it creates opportunities for the artistic community. And they're doing real important work over there, as they are, in DIY venues around the world, taking the, putting art back in the hands of the people, not just looking at the bottom line, counting tickets and trying to make a buck. Shea Stadium's got to make a buck, of course, to stay open, but I think they're really about the music first, and like I said, about creating opportunities and giving people a place to play where they don't have to negotiate with the whole capitalist enterprise that is synonymous with a lot of more traditional rock clubs, especially in New York City.
Yeah, no, that's also we got So-So Glows in rotation last year. What do you think of their new album?
Oh, it's great. Those So-So Glows, they can't miss, as far as I'm concerned. On every record that they've put out, I think each one has been a great step forward for them. And I've been following them for about 9 years now, and they're always advancing and stepping up their game. It's a very inspiring thing. And the new record, Kamikaze, is great. It's fun, it rocks. The lyrics are quite advanced, I'm a fan, what can I say?
You can say that.
I'm a fan.
There we go.
I love me some So-So Glows. And the drummer is my barber, so he keeps me looking fresh, so I'm extra grateful to that family. But they're all great guys, great band.
Is he
highly
actually
recommended?
Does he trim your beard too as well, or just the hair?
No, I take care of the beard. He only does the top of the head.
Good stuff. Well, I also wanted to ask. A lot of my friends are interested in doing some like Titus Andronicus tribute bands with some spin-off ideas, like a cross-dressing Titus cover band called Titus Andronicus. Another one is
wow, I never heard that one before.
So this has been a thing. People have approached you about ideas like this.
Well, people have been making the Titus Andronicus joke for about 10 years. Not to discourage your friends. I don't know, whatever they want to do, whatever it takes to get the young people inspired to get out there and make something happen, however punny it may be.
Another one we got, Titus Andronicus, where instead of, it'd be like everyone would dress up as cats on stage, and for all the lyrics they would be like meow, like instead of or for maybe something like upon viewing Oregon's landscape, they'd be like meow 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 meow. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, I love cats, so I can't get mad at that either. Whatever it takes to get the young people out there supporting cats, raising cat awareness.
Yeah, almost every picture.
They're great animals.
Almost every picture I've seen of you on the internet has you with a cat in it. Do you have any particular like feelings towards cats of spite for your love? Do you have any cats?
Yeah, there's one that lives in the house with us. His name's Chowder. He's a sweet little guy. He's really good about getting me up out of bed early. Usually around 7, 8 a.m. he's up in my grill trying to motivate me so that he can get his breakfast. But yeah, they're great animals. and I find relationships with them to be very fulfilling because they don't just hand out their love willy-nilly, you know, or their trust. You have to really earn it, you know. So I would recommend to anybody to get a cat. It enriches your life in a considerable way.
Also wanted to ask, I know this is going back to the most memorable tragedy. With choral tracks like Sun Salutation and Auld Lang Syne, how do they fit into the narrative of the rock opera?
Well, Auld Lang Syne comes during a part in the story that's like a dream sequence / past life regression. And that part of the story takes place on New Year's Eve in the year 1911. That's just kind of a metaphor for trying to begin a new life, trying to turn a corner in a way, make a new start, leave, you know, old things behind. And the sun salutation, that's, you know, very much influenced by my youth. My parents were, you know, pretty serious Catholics, so I heard a lot of that kind of music growing up in church and whatnot. But it's more like more of a secular twist on that, you know? Because when you think about it, like, the sun is the thing that gives us life, you know, in a very real, tangible way. It's immensely powerful, but very indifferent to our wants and desires. You know, it's a freaky thing, the sun, if you think about it. But thank God it's there.
Also, so you said that Auld Lang Syne like brings the story back to like a flashback in 1911, but I thought that the rock opera was mostly about like your battle with manic depression.
Yes, it is, but there's this whole past life regression theme within it as a way to show that, you know, like, all these mental health issues rarely are isolated incidents, you know, and most people that deal with them have some kind of history of it in their family, you know, and it's all part of a continuum, you know. And even though the past is often forgotten or not discussed or buried, it's still working in our everyday lives, you know.
So like that's like, actually, do you think, like, did you actually go back and look in that history? Is that like really directing one of your direct family members, or is that just kind of something like an alignment thing that you wanted to insert in for yourself, I guess?
I mean, it's not like a true story exactly, you know, like there's no real, you know, I don't know about a particular ancestor from 100 years ago, but I do know that, you know, there's been that kind of stuff in my family history, like there is for, I think, the vast majority of people that are struggling with these things today, you know? The whole point is that, like, when people are going through this stuff, they can feel like they're completely alone and that nobody could possibly understand what they're going through and that they're the first person to ever feel the way that they feel. And that's a natural sort of thing to think, but that's very rarely the truth. And realizing that you're not alone in these struggles is, to my mind, a good first step towards trying to do better.
So you could say one of the goals of the most lamentable tragedy, if an album were to have goals, would be kind of like to bring people together and to make them feel like less isolation, I suppose?
Yes, that's right. That's the goal of the whole thing, really.
Ah, cool. Well, also wanted to ask, I know that around the time of local business, like, I guess based on all the interviews I've seen with you, you would consider that maybe like one of the lowest points in your life when like your manic depression like really hit hard. It's been like a few years since that time. You've been touring on this record for a while. Has anything really changed in like your overall state of being, I guess?
Not really, but that's okay, you know. Like this is it's a lifelong process, you know. People are never like finished, you know what I mean? We're all growing all the time. And even if I haven't necessarily resolved too many of my ongoing issues in a substantive way, you know, I'm able to you know, kind of look at it for what it is and, you know, just try and grow in self-awareness. You know, that's kind of one of the only things that you can do, you know, is just try to be more aware and, you know, not live in denial of it. You got to just try and live peacefully with it as best you can.
So you're kind of saying that every day you grow a bit more mature, and that since that time you I wouldn't say like you're like completely out of it, but you feel like you've made progress.
Yeah, a little bit in increments, you know, but it's never like I don't think it's ever a case of, you know, like flipping a light switch and suddenly everything's different, you know. It's all just it's a game of inches that way.
So it's not like the magic morning.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, it feels like that sometimes on rare occasions. You know, when you move from a depressed state into a more manic state, it can feel like suddenly everything's different and the past is completely in the past and now there's a whole fresh new beginning where anything is possible, but that's like an illusion, you know? Our main character in the rock opera is very naive at that point in the story. And even though it's an intoxicating, exhilarating feeling, there's more to it than just an infinite world of new possibilities. You know, there's a price to pay for moments like that. So I guess one way that I've changed is that I recognize that, you know, moments such as that, you know, I used to crave them and fervently await them, but not so much anymore, because I know that that's something that can be very fleeting and can often leave you in a worse place than the one you started out in. So you need to be cautious.
So you said that there are two characters in the rock opera, like look alike. He don't act like me, but he look alike. You know. So it's you and another version of yourself, the mystery man.
That's correct.
What's the difference?
Those are
between
like
the
two. Those are the two sides of the manic depressive personality. You know, the depressed person who is, you know, very disempowered and unmotivated, and the maniac who is super motivated in maybe sometimes the wrong way. You know, and I've been both those people at different times, and often, you know, when you're in one of those states, you look back on a time when you were in the other one and your own self can be unrecognizable.
But
that's the whole reason for that dichotomy there.
And at the end of the rock opera in like No Future Part 5, is that between you and the mystery man? Like, I protected you, but now you and me are through. That's the you and the mystery man, and how like you can't continue like that kind of relationship, and you're trying to like go on a forward path, or did I misinterpret that?
No, you got it. That's, you know, well, you know, throughout the rock opera, you know, the main character is sort of tormented by some kind of unknown monstrous entity that is like the manifestation of his depression, you know, and then of course he meets the mystery man, the lookalike, who seems to be the opposite of that, who offers a more hopeful view of the future. But in the end, you know, we find out that those two were really one and the same. You know, and that both of them were creations of the mind of the main character, if that makes sense. You know, the same thing that that caused the main character to be really low and depressed is the very same thing that allowed him to become uplifted and motivated again, you know?
As far back as
And
local. Oh, I'm sorry.
You
what
go
were you saying?
ahead.
Oh well,
Nah, I got it.
basically, I was quite thinking. But as far back as local business, when you originally wrote the Electric Man about the time that you got electrocuted, were you even really thinking that far ahead that that would be like something that you would do for the rock opera? Or were you in that like manic phase at the time of your electrocution or writing that song in the first place? Like, what was that song really about when you wrote it overall?
No, you got it. It was about being a maniac. But I maybe didn't really fully appreciate that at the time that it was written. You know, I wrote that song in the hospital in like 2 minutes. So, but that kind of, that incident became sort of emblematic of that whole period of my life when I was flying pretty high and making a lot of strange choices. So when it came time to, look back on that period, which is a lot of what the rock opera is about, that became a symbol of that sort of state of mind that I thought could be useful to me. And again, it's another attempt to make connections between different parts of the Titus Andronicus catalog and, again, try to make that immersive experience for the audience and show the interconnectivity of the whole thing, the way that the certain themes run through the whole catalog.
What kind of you said strange choices. What kind of strange choices did you mean specifically?
Oh, the usual stuff, doing drugs, spending all my money, the things that maniacs do. Screaming, running around, staying up all night, being a crazy person,
So not out of the ordinary strangeness, just, the general strangeness that involves those kinds of fun things, I guess.
Right. Not like performing animal sacrifice in the woods or anything like that, but just partying too much, basically.
Have you ever considered performing an animal sacrifice in the woods, just out of curiosity?
I have not.
I
love
assume.
Animals. I don't even eat meat.
So you're still vegan?
Well, I'm not a vegan. I take dairy products. So maybe it's kind of a cop-out.
Nah, milk and cheese is too good, man.
Well, some people say that meat is too good. But, we all have to draw the line for ourselves somewhere.
Thanks. Well, really great talking to you again, Patrick. You're like the man for doing this. Hopefully see you around sometime soon,
All right, I hope so too. Thank you, Noah. You're very thorough.
Excellent. Well, have an awesome day. See you on tour, man, and keep on rocking in the free world.
Oh, I sure will. Doot, 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 doot.
Doot, doot.